The cosmos is all that is, or ever was, or ever will be. Our feeblest contemplations of the cosmos stir us. There is a tingling in the spine, a catch in the voice, a faint sensation as if a distant memory or falling from a height. We know we are approaching the greatest of mysteries. From the first paragraph of Cosmos, written by Carl Sagan, Ann Druyan, and Steven Soter.
Hello, I'm Kathleen Koch. Since the first days humans were able to look up and see the night sky, they've wondered about the greatest of mysteries. Edwin Hubble said the urge is older than history. It is not satisfied and it will not be suppressed. Made up of scientists, academics, and news broadcasters, Astrocast.tv was founded with the goal to report, inform, and educate about the space sciences. Our staff is made up of experienced, knowledgeable people who are efficient and excited about their craft. Our expertise is supplemented with both cutting-edge graphics and a wealth of the latest video to make complex scientific theories easily understandable to a world audience. Since my dad worked in the aerospace industry, I grew up with my eyes on the stars. As a kid, I would go to rocket launches with my family at Cape Canaveral. Skylab and the shuttle program took us next to Huntsville and the Mississippi Gulf Coast. Standing next to my father, I watched the first shuttle flight blast off in 1981. It was no wonder I later ended up covering aviation and the space program for CNN. It was a passion I would never outgrow. What you're about to see is our endeavor to report, inform, and educate as we as a race ask the greatest of questions about what Carl Sagan called the greatest of mysteries. Today on Astrocast.tv, we'll be talking about President Obama's speech at the Kennedy Space Center and his new plans for NASA and the space program. You'll be interested to learn about the volcano that erupted in Iceland and disrupted Europe. And what are those gamma ray bursts scientists are talking about? Stay with us and you'll find out right here on Astrocast.tv.
Welcome to Astrocast.tv, your source for astronomy and space news. Now here's your host, Kathleen Koch.
Hello, I'm Kathleen Koch, and I'd like to welcome you to our 27th episode of Astrocast.tv. We'll begin our odyssey with the latest space news headlines. The Space Shuttle Atlantis just returned from its last mission, blasting off on May 4th to dock with the International Space Station for the 11th and final time. Atlantis has logged more than 120 million miles in its 25-year history. On this last voyage, Atlantis made repairs and installations to the ISS that included a space-to-ground antenna and a mini research module providing extra cargo storage and a docking station for Russian spacecraft. Last year, Atlantis was the shuttle that repaired the Hubble telescope for the last time. On April 24th, the Hubble telescope celebrated 20 years of dramatic history. With expensive repairs and incredible results, Hubble has produced some of the most spectacular images known to man and continues to do so. Hubble enthusiasts can be a part of the history and celebration by posting sentiments at hubblesite.org. Another payload that took to the skies the same day as Atlantis on May 4th was loaded by high school and college students from around New Mexico. They gathered to watch a rocket blast off into the southwestern sky 70 miles from Earth at the spaceport near Las Cruces. The rocket, built by Up Aerospace, was carrying the students' own electronic experiments. This is the second annual launch sponsored by the New Mexico Space Grant Consortium, which opens a gateway to space for future scientists. In a new Discovery Channel documentary, renowned theoretical physicist Stephen Hawking made statements about his belief that life exists in other parts of the universe. Yet he warned of possible unfriendly interactions that could be dangerous to Earth. In response, a panel of experts debated the existence of aliens on CNN's Larry King Live. The panel was made up of an astronomer, a physicist, and from Coneheads to Outer Space panel, Dan Aykroyd. Seth Shostak from the SETI Institute was also on the show.
Well, there's no doubt that when more advanced societies meet less advanced societies, as has happened many times in the past 500 years right here on Earth, the results for the less advanced societies are not always, if you will, to their liking. I mean, you destroy the cultures. And so I think that all that Hawking was saying is that if we were to encounter another civilization, a civilization from beyond the Earth, it might not go so well for us because clearly they would be more advanced than we are.
Have you ever looked up at the stars and wondered about life out there? If so, you're not alone. The study of life elsewhere began as the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, SETI. This summer, scientists and members of the public will meet at SETICon, sponsored by the SETI Institute, a private nonprofit group dedicated to scientific research about life in the universe. Dr. Seth Shostak, SETI Institute's senior astronomer, described SETICon.
Well, SETICon is an initiative, of course, of the SETI Institute, and the idea is to convey some of the excitement of the sort of research that this institute does by having a sort of a public event open to anybody who wants to come, where we bring together scientists and celebrities from the world of science fiction and reporters, writers, that sort of thing, astronauts, for a couple of day event on a weekend.
SETICon runs from August 13th to 15th in Santa Clara, California. Details are at SETICon.com.
For most Americans, April 15th is tax day, and many Americans see it as an opportune time to protest taxes and government spending. But this year, there was a new twist on that spending with NASA. On April 15th, instead of addressing taxes, President Barack Obama addressed space exploration in front of an invitation-only audience at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The president's new plan for NASA includes manned trips to Mars, a new telescope to follow Hubble when its mission is complete, incorporation of more scientists and more inventive technologies for space travel. Modernizing the Kennedy Space Center is also in the budget, preparing the center for the future space program and creating new jobs, along with a $40 million economic stimulus package to revitalize the region. The new plan also opens up the skies to private industries, creating partnerships for low Earth orbit transportations so that NASA can concentrate its resources on deep space exploration. A White House press release in February indicated that the Constellation program, which targeted returning U.S. astronauts to the moon in 2020, would be terminated, raising concerns in the space community. Florida Governor Charlie Crist has been skeptical of the president's proposal and told Politico.com that unless we continue the Constellation program, America will lose its leadership role in space innovation. The loss of the lunar program also prompted a strong statement from Neil Armstrong, the first person to walk on the moon, objecting to the loss as a step toward American mediocrity. But fellow astronaut Buzz Aldrin was present at the Kennedy Space Center to support the president.
So let me start by being extremely clear. I am 100% committed to the mission of NASA and its future. Because broadening our capabilities in space will continue to serve our society in ways that we can scarcely imagine.
NASA Administrator Charles Bolden, in a recent statement, said that the Constellation project is behind schedule and underfunded. But Bolden also explained that under the president's new plan, NASA will be looking to develop systems more quickly that cost less. The Constellation program would be adapted to new technologies, such as a rescue vehicle for the International Space Station and putting astronauts in deep space. Bolden testified in front of the U.S. House of Representatives Science and Technology Committee on May 26th to support the proposal. Also testifying were former astronauts Neil Armstrong and Eugene Cernan, who used words like devastating, third-rate, and slide to mediocrity to describe the program. The committee's purpose is to determine how achievable the president's proposal is, and Congress has to approve the budget once it's submitted. Only 2 more space shuttle flights are scheduled before the orbiters are retired by NASA. Shuttle Discovery is scheduled September 16th to be the last launch of a space shuttle, the 134th shuttle flight in 29 years. Much of the new science and technology will be outsourced to commercial companies, along with manned flights to low Earth orbit and transportation to the International Space Station. This diverts some expenses away from taxpayers, allowing NASA to redirect its money toward projects that target further exploration of Mars and more. With commercial vehicles blasting off and lunar landings by NASA dismissed, does that leave the moon open to private industries in other countries? Have we learned all there is to learn about it and decided that its resources are not worth the time and expense to tap? There is helium-3 on the moon, enough clean energy to power the Earth for perhaps 1,000 years or more, according to some scientists. Difficult to retrieve, would it be cost-effective to go for it? The Russians seem to think so, with plans to start mining the helium-3 by the year 2020, according to an article in Pravda. And the Russians are not alone. China also plans to land on the moon by 2020 to explore the possibilities. But some U.S. researchers have dismissed helium-3 as a viable fuel source in several science magazines because it is so difficult to burn. It is considered a possibility sometime in the future as they learn more about processing the fuel. Maybe we'll be asking the Chinese and the Russians permission to mine alongside them on the moon, or maybe not. Administrator Bolden indicated that lunar landings could be included in a revision of the Obama plan. Now we just have to wait to find out if America's role in space exploration will be revolutionary and relevant. It's all in the future, discovery of the final frontier. Volcanoes violently demonstrate the powers of nature. They also play a constructive green role, supporting the balance in the Earth system. Learn more about volcanoes and how we use Earth observation from space to reveal some of their secrets as Bente Liljebi shares this explosive story in A Green Space, A Green Earth.
Iceland, an island seemingly both cold and remote, recently demonstrated being quite the opposite. Iceland is a geophysical hotspot, harboring numerous volcanoes situated right on top of the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, the divide between the North American and Eurasian tectonic plates. In March and April, the Icelandic mountain Eyjafjallajökull exploded with volcanic eruptions of hot magma. It produced an ash cloud reaching as far as the heart of continental Europe. Dr. Kristin Vågfjord is a research director at the Icelandic Meteorological Office. Living on top of an active geophysical area such as Iceland is a dream come true for scientists like Dr. Vågfjord, because earthquakes and volcanic eruptions are almost a daily occurrence. Dr. Vågfjord and her colleagues managed to include an analysis of the last swarm of earthquakes that occurred in 2009 on the then unknown mountain Eyjafjallajökull, just before her deadline in a European research project about volcanoes. After that, activity on Eyjafjallajökull conveniently settled down again. Imagine pushing the cream up in a French dessert called crème brûlée to the point where the candy crust cracks. This is similar to what happens when hot magma from the Earth's mantle pushes on the Earth's crust from the inside. With enough pressure, cracks in the crust are generated, causing earthquakes on its way to filling the volcano's magma chambers. This magma also forces tectonic plates to roll ever so slowly, but enough so that they are able to trigger deadly earthquakes as the plates collide or rub against each other. Earthquakes and volcanoes are closely linked. While earthquakes are practically impossible to predict, volcanoes often give a few hints before erupting. Volcanic ground movements leading up to an eruption can be monitored with a suite of seismic and geodetic instrumentation and technologies. In addition to the traditional seismographs, new space technologies such as interferometric synthetic aperture radar or INSAR and GPS have proven quite informative. Dr. Andrea Donnellan is leading NASA's QuakeSim project, which combines computer models and satellite data in order to better understand active tectonic and earthquake processes.
In QuakeSim, we use GPS and INSAR because they tell us about the motions on the ground, the crustal deformation. That tells us what's going on with the faults at depth. The two complement each other because GPS is located at points on the Earth and it's very continuous in time. The INSAR is very spatially continuous, so we get a very nice snapshot of deformation, but it's not continuous in time. It may have an 8-day repeat, a 45-day repeat, and so we use the GPS to stitch together the time history for the INSAR.
Dr. Paul Lundgren, another NASA scientist, uses INSAR data when he studies volcanoes.
And so there's two ways that INSAR works. One is that we get these images from time to time. And then by taking many images, we can create what we call an INSAR time series. So we can actually see how the ground evolves with time. And so the spatial pattern gives you, can constrain models of the volcano magma pressure source at depth. And then how this evolves in time also can relate to the dynamic behavior of the volcano with time, which can be very important for trying to understand future eruptions.
The night before the second eruption of Eyjafjallajökull, Kristin Vågfjord saw no signs of extraordinary seismic activity. She went to bed confident that the volcano was also asleep. What happened the next day is now an expensive part of airline history. The Eyjafjallajökull ash cloud closed down European airspace for days, stranding travelers and costing the industry billions of dollars. The Eyjafjallajökull ash cloud caused a lot of trouble for people. Why did the volcano produce so much ash?
During the night, the farmers around the volcano had all been evacuated because of this danger of flooding. Then this magma that was erupting was very rich with gas. So the gas and the interaction with the meltwater caused this very thick ash-laden plume to be thrown up in the atmosphere, which caused a lot of ashfall in the area around. I pounded the farms on the south side of the volcano with about 5 centimeters of ash where it was the greatest, and also threw all this ash up into the upper atmosphere, and where it was then carried over to Europe to disrupt all the air traffic for several days. I think it was almost a week that there were trouble with air traffic.
Kristin Vågfjord and co-workers at the Institute of Earth Sciences have had very busy days since Eyjafjallajökull erupted. But U.S. Geological Survey volcanologist David Johnston suffered a much grimmer destiny when he was monitoring the Mount St. Helens eruption in 1980. In contrast to Eyjafjallajökull, Mount St. Helens, situated in the Cascades Range of the state of Washington in the USA, clearly showed consistent increased seismic activity, as well as distinct changes in its topography. It was Mount St. Helens' unexpected, explosive lateral eruption that cost Dr. David Johnston his life that day in May 1980. In direct response to the Mount St. Helens eruption, the U.S. Geological Survey established the David A. Johnston Cascades Volcano Observatory, an observatory that today is included in a global ash warning network. This summer and fall, a number of activities are planned to mark the 30th anniversary of the Mount St. Helens devastating reawakening. It was the explosive gas and the direction of the blast that made Mount St. Helens so lethal. Volcanic gases are indeed dangerous, both as explosives and toxins. However, long-term effects of volcanoes have served as the basis for development of civilizations, as volcanic ash become nutrients, making the soil fertile and enabling rich agricultural production. By contributing to the carbon dioxide cycle, volcanoes also play a role in regulating climate. Extreme eruptions like the 1991 Pinatubo volcano in the Philippines caused global temperatures to decrease by 0.5 degrees Celsius over a 2-year period, illustrating the extent of the consequences of volcanic eruptions. So far, Eyjafjallajökull is a baby volcano compared to Pinatubo and will not even make a tiny dent on the climate. The economic impact, however, is significant, and continued monitoring and studies of volcanoes is important for both our physical and economic health. I'm Bente Liljaby, a green space, a green earth for Astrocast.tv.
Imagine turning the mass of our sun into a flash of pure energy in 10 seconds, following Einstein's famous equation, E equals mc squared. That's the energy level astronomers observe in distant and puzzling bursts of light occurring all over the sky. Carolyn Collins-Peterson unveils the mysterious gamma-ray bursts in the astronomer's universe.
Far beyond the stars of our own Milky Way galaxy, out past the nearest galaxies, at distances so huge that scientists call them cosmological distances, astronomers have detected bright, unpredictable blasts of light and high-energy radiation. They're called gamma-ray bursts, or GRBs. I'm Carolyn Collins-Peterson, your host for The Astronomer's Universe, with an in-depth look at these mysterious flashes of light. On April 13, 2010, a NASA satellite called SWIFT captured a burst of gamma radiation from an object in space so far away that it took more than 13 billion years to reach Earth. It was the 500th gamma-ray burst SWIFT had detected since its launch in 2005. This satellite's observations are aimed at understanding these distant, titanic blasts of energy. Astronomers first became aware of gamma-ray bursts in 1967, when military satellites designed to look for the signs of nuclear bombs being detonated detected gamma-ray bursts occurring all over in space. Since then, space-based observatories, such as the Italian-Dutch Beppo-Sachs X-ray satellite, NASA's Compton Gamma-Ray Observatory, and the Fermi satellite have been trying to track down gamma-ray bursts. Other observatories, such as the VLA, search for the radio emissions from a GRB. The Hubble Space Telescope, as well as ground-based observatories, has observed the optical counterparts of a GRB. In fact, the brightest flares of GRBs in optical light can even be detected by small telescopes commonly used by amateur astronomers. It took decades for astronomers to figure out what causes these massive explosions in space. Dr. Dale Frail of the U.S. National Radio Astronomy Observatory works at the Very Large Array in New Mexico. We talked with him about his research into GRBs. Dr. Frail, thank you for joining us on the Astronomer's Universe.
Well, thanks for asking me, Carol.
So, tell us about these different types of gamma-ray bursts. What causes them, and where are they occurring?
Well, we basically divide them into two types, and they're divided by their duration. So there's what we call a long-duration gamma-ray burst. They're about 10 seconds long in the gamma rays themselves. These, we believe, are related to the death of massive stars. So these are stars that are 10 to 20 times the mass of our own sun. And these stars, when they die, when they run out of hydrogen and helium in their centers, they collapse and create a black hole. And the black hole powers the gamma-ray bursts we see. Then there's the second class, which is the short-duration bursts. They last about 1/10 of a second. And we think those are related to the gravitational merger of two stars, maybe a white dwarf and a neutron star, or a neutron star and a neutron star. Again, they form a black hole at the formation when they merge. And a gamma-ray burst, a briefer flash of gamma rays comes from the short bursts.
Astronomers have seen gamma-ray bursts all over the sky, at distances as close as the nearby universe, to regions so far away that we see GRBs occurring when the universe was only a few million years old. The first precise measurements of the locations of GRBs were made in 1997. After that, Frail and his colleagues at Caltech began looking for afterglows of GRBs at radio wavelengths. Radio measurements give them a clue to the births of rapidly rotating black holes, the central engines that emit these gamma ray bursts.
We call them central engines because the rotating black hole is what powers the gamma ray burst, and we want to know how much energy has been released. The energy probably is coming out along the rotation axis of the rotating black hole and expands outward from the collapsing star. And the opening angle of that jet is very narrow. It's somewhere typically between 2 degrees to 10 degrees. So when you see a gamma ray burst, you're seeing a blast of radiation that's directed towards your line of sight in this very narrow beam.
You've said that you want to use GRBs to explore the earliest epochs of the history of the universe. What would they tell us about that time in cosmic history?
In a gamma ray burst, it emits all of that energy in a very short amount of time when it dies. And so you can see gamma ray bursts for a long distance. And their advantage is that you may not see the birth of the first star, but we will be using these objects as signposts, the death of these first stars. We can use them to study what the stars look like before they exploded.
That's one hot topic in GRB research. What's on the frontier for you in GRB studies?
So the near, the far, the hyper, and the short bursts are sort of what I call the frontier areas. All of them are trying to get at the question of what is that central engine? What is the nature of that central engine? What is it about the newly formed black hole that made it special that way?
The mystery of some gamma ray burst has been partly solved, but there is still a great deal for astronomers to learn about the signals from these titanic explosions that reverberate across time and space. For the Astronomer's Universe, I'm Carolyn Collins Peterson, Astrocast.tv.
Imagine an astronomer who is part Dalai Lama, part politician, and part Indiana Jones. When you do, you get a member of Astronomers Without Borders. Their motto, one people, one sky. Out of Calabasas, California, north of Malibu, Astronomers Without Borders launches astronomy events around the world through the World Wide Web, peacefully bringing cultures together to explore and share the stargazing experience. And it's not Hollywood stargazing. Going beyond cultural and political differences, this group brings people together in more than 30 countries to share what we all share, the sky. While visiting other countries to view solar eclipses, Mike Simmons, founder of Astronomers Without Borders, found the local circumstances were often different from how they were portrayed by the media in the United States. So the idea to create a website offering a venue for sharing experiences through blogs and photo galleries emerged, like the sun from behind the moon. Mike Simmons joins us now to talk about this international program. Hi, Mike, and welcome to Astrocast.tv.
Well, thanks for having me, Kathleen.
Mike, how tough was it to initiate such a global organization?
Astronomers Without Borders has actually been a phenomenal success. It's only been about 2 years since we really established Astronomers Without Borders. And my experience in nonprofit groups like this is it takes many years of volunteer efforts before it really gets off the ground. But it's really skyrocketed, I think, because of the tremendous interest. It seems to be filling a niche, a need that people have in many different places. And there really haven't been any obstacles other than the fact that the demand, the need has been greater than we've been able to satisfy, really. So with things like 100 Hours of Astronomy that I was asked to co-chair for the International Year of Astronomy, which was a phenomenal success and brought in a lot of interest in continuing this kind of thing. Now with Global Astronomy Month in April of this year, we're really running way ahead of what we're able to manage and just trying to keep up with it. So it's been a completely new experience for me to be in something that is really driving all of us rather than the other way around.
The website talks about what is called a star party for the uninitiated. What is a star party about?
Oh, well, a star party is where amateur astronomers and others get together with their telescopes. The idea is just to share the sky. Again, the theme of sharing, everybody gets together to look at different objects through their telescopes, share the views through each other's telescopes, help each other. Sometimes there are novices. And it's really as much a social gathering as anything else.
Thank you, Mike, for joining us on Astrocast.tv.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Countries that have groups affiliated with AWB include Sweden, Sri Lanka, Iraq, Kazakhstan, and New Zealand. No corner of the globe is without stars or star enthusiasts. People around the world have gazed at stars forever, regardless of language, culture, or government affiliation. Astronomers Without Borders embraces this phenomenon as an opportunity for peaceful relations. To participate in Global Astronomy Cultural Exchange, you can visit their website at astronomerswithoutborders.org. We all have taken a look at our night sky and wondered what's out there. Worldwide, there are hundreds of thousands of amateur astronomers and night sky viewers doing real science. Now let's find out not only about what celestial happenings you may observe in the month of June from your own backyard, but also what you may observe through the eyes of the virtual telescope of the Bellatrix Astronomical Observatory in Rome. Dr. Harold Geller reports in Our Night Sky.
I'm Harold Geller, and I'm here to tell you about what you might see in the night sky this month of June 2010. For those of you running astronomy websites, remember you too can embed the Our Night Sky program on your astronomy webpage at no cost. It is easy to do. Just visit our embed page here at Astrocast.tv and follow the instructions. The month of June is most well known for the solstice. In our northern hemisphere, it is the summer solstice, but for our viewers south of the equator, it is the winter solstice. Humans have long observed the sun and noted the solstice day. Today, the sun can be observed through the Solar Dynamics Observatory of NASA, which was launched on the 11th of February 2010. The Solar Dynamics Observatory recently had its first light, that is, its first acquisition of scientific imagery, on the 21st of April. And take a look at this incredible image. There will be many exciting solar discoveries to come if all goes well for the Solar Dynamics Observatory. Those of you with good eastern horizons should look for Mercury in the early morning skies before sunrise during the first half of June. And Venus this month will be an evening gem, but will be best seen by our southern hemisphere observers. On the 15th of June, Venus will be just 4 degrees north of the crescent moon. Mars will be in the western sky in the evening and will be less than 1 degree north of Regulus on the 6th of June. Regulus is the brightest star in the constellation Leo the Lion. Jupiter will be appearing in June in the early morning eastern sky, and it will be just about 1 degree away from the vernal equinox. The vernal equinox is at a parent point in the sky where the ecliptic, or path of the sun, crosses the celestial equator. Saturn should also be a good sight for our June observers. In the late evening, it will be in the western skies, a great observer's treat, even with just a good pair of binoculars. And if you find yourself without any equipment to do any observing, perhaps you can check into the virtual telescope at the Bellatrix Astronomical Observatory in Italy. Just so happens that we were able to link up with Dr. Gianluca Massi, who runs that observatory. Now, Dr. Massi, you run a service called the Virtual Telescope in Italy. Can you please describe this service?
Yes, I'm really happy to describe the virtual telescope, and it consists in a number of telescopes that people from all around the world can remotely use through the internet. But when we started this project a few years ago, we also wanted that people had a guide on site. So our users actually have real-time assistance by a professional astrophysicist helping in any of their needs. So I'm proud to say that we are really helping people to discover the universe.
So what are the typical celestial objects that you observe during an observing session?
I can say that our telescopes are able to show almost everything in the universe. And our bigger telescope is actually able to show you the planets with plenty of details, the moon, and also objects around the solar system, And if you want to leave for a very far away journey, you can even explore the Milky Way or the distant universe with plenty of satisfaction. And a few days ago, during a live show, we actually observed a very distant quasar, which was 10 billion light years away, and it was a great fun for everybody.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to talk with us here at Astrocast.tv.
It was my pleasure, and have fun with the universe.
Are you fascinated by the moon? If so, mark these dates on your June calendar. The last quarter moon in June will be visible on Friday the 4th. The new moon takes place on Saturday the 12th. The first quarter moon will be visible on Saturday the 19th. And the full moon will rise at sunset on Saturday the 26th of June. In fact, with the exception of our viewers in Europe and Africa, you should be able to observe a partial lunar eclipse on the 26th of June. Thank you for watching. I'm Harold Geller, wishing you all clear skies in our night sky for Astrocast.tv.
Here at Astrocast.tv, we have certainly enjoyed sharing these fascinating stories about our universe with you. Tune in next time as we learn more about the wonders and mysteries of the universe in which we live and explore.